Hello and welcome to another modelling video. This is Alan from the Man at YouTube with another model video. Today we are unboxing, testing and reviewing the Neoeco NCT-208K dual action airbrush gravity feed. A visual knockoff of the Harder and Strenbeck Infinity CR Plus range. The airbrush is fitted with a cutaway nozzle tip crown. Within the box you also get a normal crown, standard nozzle wrench and rubber hose adapter to 1/8 fitting, info card directing to tutorials and further communication with the company, and English with pictorial documentation including assembly instructions and parts directory. With a nice box and a few lovely touches such as this rubber protection stopper, it is a Hseng manufactured airbrush, however at a much higher price point of $30 to $40. With nicely polished and machined parts, the nozzle and needle equipped is a 0.3mm Hseng Iwata style. With any new tool purchased, and what we always do on this channel, is to, following the instructions, completely strip it down to its serviceable base parts and reassemble, doing this multiple times to have a sound mechanical knowledge of the entire tool, and confirming the mechanisms work properly reassemble with the needle seated. My assumptions were confirmed with the inside and out. In a mechanical setting, metal does not with friction slide and valves. In the event of a leaky O-ring or worse, pulling your needle out and introducing paint, everything can be badly seized. For smooth and enjoyable operation, I like to lubricate certain parts, including the needle guide, the trigger assembly and the rear end of the airbrush body. Sometimes the nipple on the air valve, just a light glaze with petroleum jelly and a Q-tip. Next we'll do a walkthrough assembling it step by step. First the trigger assembly with the needle guide, spring and sheath, assembling it as so and exercising it to make sure you have spring back. The trigger, which has an articulated brass rod, slots right through the top opening into the air valve. It may fold over and take a few goes, making it very annoying. On the reverse side you should see the hole filled with brass. The next step is a little different to the Hseng and tripped me up as well. An additional outer threaded sleeve goes over the trigger assembly sleeve, and this threads and locks into the main body. Again, making sure the mechanism still slides. Remember the tongue of the needle guide faces up and scoops in through the trigger hole. Thread on the nozzle cap or crown to protect the needle going through. You may need to quickly take it off to check that it's properly seated. With the nozzle protected, we're able to slide through the needle through the back of the needle guide very carefully, especially around the trigger in case it's not lined correctly and we're not going to break the tip of the needle. For a little resistance through the packing O-ring near the paint reservoir, it'll go all the way through and seat into the nozzle. It should stick out approximately no more than over 2mm. The rear cover threads on as well. I love the cutout that shows the needle nut and shows that it's operating correctly. It can be checked and tightened during operation in case of no flow. And lastly, the needle stopper threads in the back. It's not 100% needed, but partially in will allow for free flow, and screwing it all the way in will stop the trigger producing a finer line. The air valve threads in the bottom hole. When completely connected, it should spring back up via operating of the trigger down. With the mechanical components done, the paint cup screws on. Larger and smaller paint vessels can be bought. The lid clicks in with friction fit with a air hole. Concluding the correct method of assembling the airbrush, where all mechanical assets are soundly fit and operate without issue, just requiring a test with an air source. The 1/8 inch input is universal to all hobby oilless compressors or larger ones with adapters, made common with the Hseng patented oilless piston compressor. They go by many big and small brands labels. We'll be charging it well over 20 psi to test for leaks and flow. Operating will be around the 12 to 15 psi. Between the paint cup, the nozzle crown, there doesn't seem to be any leak, though it's definitely flowing quite nicely. The bottom valve is tight included. Any issues there will compromise flow and atomization. On that note, the next test is seeing paint output. With mediocre lacquer hobby paint thinned to a watery viscosity, drawing a thin line and shading a very basic spoon to a mirror gloss finish without overspray or grittiness was very easy. On paper and exercising various different tasks we may require of our airbrushes, firstly to show skill as well as brush performance will be spraying as thin of a line as humanly possible, about the same as a ballpoint pen. You do have to get medium and viscosity just right, but with a good airbrush it should make it much easier with less adjustments in the trigger and twisting the nozzle. This came out fairly easily, very thin, did not judder or cut out randomly. Good flow, great atomization. As I'm cutting away and doing larger and larger patterns, it's still fairly smooth and it is not spluttering with good gradient and not so much overspray. Fairly tight collection of paint. Dusting on the same, we've got good paint flow with the cutout crown nozzle cap. Dusting and shading, fairly easy and good control. With ergonomics and custom comfort in the hand and control, I'm doing little shapes, S's, circles, triangles. If I'm doing geometric shapes to camouflage or even writing, it is comfortable and can achieve these. I'm rushing it a bit and I'm not particularly highly technical in this and still have a lot to improve as I'm not a canvas painter or a tattoo artist, but it does do the trick with my very limited skills. Back to the box, we are swapping to the regular shape crown nozzle cap, and it's simply hold the needle back, screw the old one off and putting the new one on. With the standard nozzle cover and crown, I'm finding that the lines very fine and detailing is pretty much equal, maybe ever so slightly tighter in overspray and spray gradient. Overall performance wise, I can get similar results by spraying very close or further away for shading and colouring in, and pretty much don't see too much of an advantage besides getting, again, thinner lines. The advantage I definitely have is sealing the front with my finger and doing the jet bubble technique in mixing paint or thinner in the cup, which I can't do that with the cutaway. With this model, it does build up a bit of paint around the needle and air valve, which can cause flow issues later. You'll have to be fairly vigilant in cleaning the inner part of the cup, as it does suffer dry drip slightly after changing colours or two. On the same note with paint flow, I've noticed in the cup leading to the nozzle, the channel is very narrow. Putting overly thick or highly viscous paint is going to also cause flow issues. So that's just something to notice with this airbrush, maybe for more experienced users, or preferences for thinner viscosities like myself. The final test, and just to show a point, is the valve at the end of the airbrush. It is commonly believed that by adjusting it you can control the flow and size of your spray pattern by adjusting the paint flow. Realistically, from completely open to near closed, it's pretty much the same performance. Once a few threads or twists to almost being closed, it will be heavily restricted, but there's also high risk of spluttering. Quarter turn more, then it's completely cut off and you get nothing out of it. I don't find it to be a satisfactory form of restriction, and never use it to the point where I find it to be a liability possibility of potential air leak in the future absolutely bricking the airbrush and making it unusable. I generally don't go for designs with this feature, but I can see why people think it is a good selling point. Due to the higher polish, cleaning the airbrush is very straightforward by decanting the paint, wiping out the inner cup and flushing out with gun cleaner or tool airbrush cleaner, followed by a second round of normal thinner. Again, due to the very fine channel from the cup to the nozzle, getting the paint out of there is a little bit trickier, and if you do block it with debris or overly thick paint, it will be a struggle to completely clean out. There is the added step that after every use or color use, you will need to remove or retract the needle and clean out the nozzle and crown well. Otherwise, not too bad at all, and it's pretty quick and straightforward for my style at least. This concludes the review and tests. This airbrush has a few drawbacks, also improvements. It is also 3 times more expensive than one of the best patented Hseng airbrushes, which is an absolute workhorse and not much drawback. Its build is easy to control and it produces very fine work and ideal for fine lining, detailing and fine gradient work. With this fineness, it does have a downside of easier to clog than most, including Hseng and the valve at the end of the airbrush. I would pass and not use this necessarily as a workhorse and save for other models, adding a 0.5 nozzle for priming, base coating and clear coating. I would retain this for finer work, detail, pre-post shading and figurine work. For anything like this or super fine viscosity materials like Indian ink, this is absolutely perfect. On that note, I can definitely highly recommend this airbrush. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, until next time, stay tuned for further content, and we'll catch you guys next time. Check out the social media links down below, and see you later.